It's the Underpowered Hour. On this week's show, live from Destination Defender, it's Ike and I's panel with Mr. Land Rover Mike Bishop and Lauren Wolf, owner of First Off the Line 97 NAS Defender 90. And now, without further delay, here's the show. Welcome to the Underpowered Hour. I'm Steve Barris, mild-mannered television executive by day and Land Rover collector by night. You can find out more about our cars and what we're working on at thebarriscollection.com or follow us on Instagram at thebarriscollection. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Ike Goss.
Thank you to everyone joining us today. I'm the tropical roof vent to Steven's HEPA-filtered air intake. I'm the hollow whistle of podcasting, Ike Goss. I own and operate Pangolin 4x4 in Springfield, Oregon, where we live and breathe Land Rovers. Check us out online on Facebook, Instagram at Pangolin 4x4. Let's get started.
All right, Ike. Well, we're back from Destination Defender and from our other Land Rovering trips over the last week or so, but we've brought something back with us, and this time it's not an STD. It is a Destination Defender panel. We were lucky enough to have Lauren Wolf, who owns the First Off the Line 1997 Defender, which became the NAS, meaning call it Diamond Edition car that was actually created for the head of BMW at the time, but was not accepted. And so you'll hear more about that in the panel. And we were also joined on that panel by none other than Mr. Land Rover himself, the Michael Bishop.
Michael Bishop, fresh in from the UK, joining us for the Destination Defender panel.
Yep.
We were kindly asked to be there for Land Rover during Destination Defender and chat with Lauren Wolf, a former engineer at Land Rover in the UK. Yeah. And she was lucky enough to find this special car in the Land Rover Engineering Depot.
Yeah.
Which she refers to as the junkyard.
Yeah, the junkyard,
you can hear all about that and our other questions and discussions about the head of BMW and his use of the car and so forth. It's kind of interesting. Little tidbit of Land Rover history.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll dial that up because it's a long one and we want you to enjoy it. So here we go. We'll thread up the microfiche and enjoy it.
All right. Let's go.
What a fantastic deal. Hey, this is a pretty neat... It's a pretty neat venue, and Land Rover's done an incredible job of getting all these little bits out here and all these free-range Defenders just roaming in their native habitat. It's nice to see that. So, as Jeffrey mentioned, Ike and I are responsible for the world's second most popular Land Rover podcast, the Underpowered Hour. And we bring that to you every Monday morning, come rain or shine, whether you like it or not. There'll be a new podcast there. So you're all part of the shared podcast experience today. So if you would, it's the favorite, right? Yeah, that's great. Plan on monetizing this audience. So today we're here to chat about something very unique, very special to not just North America, but to Defender specifically. If we all remember back to a bygone day when the Defender was slightly boxier and a hell of a lot slower, Land Rover did a special run of what in some places is called the 50th anniversary for the 50th anniversary of Land Rover, and some places is called the Diamond Edition. But before they did that, they built a prototype. And that is, or a pre-production car, and that is what we're here to talk about today. So I thought maybe what would be better, because certainly it is impossible to describe these individuals, Ike excluded. Ike's very, very easy to describe. But I thought maybe, Mike, you could introduce yourself, and Mike could introduce yourself as well, and sort of tell us a little bit about your Land Rover pedigree, the least impeachable, the incredible pedigree.
Where do I start? So, I work for Land Rover Classic in the UK. I'm Mr. Land Rover specialist, who basically what I do is I entertain people with stories about the vehicles. And from that, they can choose what they want to do, whether they buy a classic Land Rover or they come off roading with me, or we just enjoy researching about some obscure part of the history. And that's basically, you know, what I do day in, day out as a job, and also as a hobby, really, don't I? So there's people always say that there's you know everything, but I'd have to say you never really stop learning about Land Rover. There's always something new.
Never say never when it comes to Rover. You know, no, there's another rabbit hole somewhere to find more information about something, and that's what's happening today. This is definitely a little corner of Land Rover history that I wasn't familiar with, so I'm excited to hear more about it.
Absolutely, and back in the day at Solihull, right up to the end of old Defender, it was a very, very interesting place. I mean, as a culture, it was still very much a World War II factory where generally the answer was, yeah, we can do that. Even it was the most outrageous thing, like you went off-roading in an LRE truck and you happened to bend the front fender, and you go to production manufacturing and say, you got a white front fender? And they'll be like, yeah, we got one of them spare, and you're just going to bolt it on. So what are your recollections of Solihull?
So when I walked into the factory at Solihull, I was floored by the difference.
I don't think your mic's dead mic, not me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Just gave me a dry run. Hey.
Yeah.
And maybe introduce yourself as well.
Sure. So Lauren Cassidy Wolf, I grew up an enthusiast of cars that came from my dad. I grew up in a rural town in Connecticut, and my dad was big into cars. And so I just grew up with that, sort of mechanical inclination, hands-on. You fix your own cars. You're not willing to get dirty. And I was a first-generation college kid. Studied engineering in Virginia, and then forged a path into the auto industry from there. And I found myself at Ford Motor Company in their engineering program, and had this very unique opportunity to spend a year at Land Rover UK. And so I went over there and I spent about a third of the year in each of their locations. So Solihull, Gaydon, and Warwick, and did engineering, manufacturing, and a sales rotation. So the very first assignment I had was test engineering. So I was outfitting the Land Rover vehicles that were pre-production and future production, as well as the competitive set for testing. And a lot of times they were breaking. So I spent a lot of times in the scrapyard getting spare axles and things. So we were really pushing these vehicles to their absolute limits. And it was fascinating. So that's my story. So
Very cool. That's really awesome. And so we're here today, for those of you who can't see the screen, I don't know, maybe that's just Bob. Oh, it's like Bob and Aronson. There's like a cut right across. I can see by them. Oh, there's a hat. That's what it is. You got a big Texas Fob steel there. So yeah, that's right. Oh, cowboy. Speaking of which, so part of this story, and I think this is my favorite part of this story. For those of you who don't know, of course, BMW owned a Land Rover for a little while, and famously, the head of BMW Group, or I'm sorry, the head of Jaguar Land Rover Group on behalf of BMW.
Yeah.
Oh, here we gotta come. Yeah. Oh, okay, we're gonna sort it out.
Juggling mics.
Stop. Keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so surprisingly, as a young man, Volt Jeffrey Hooden, I think he looks a little bit like Errol Flynn. No? He's kind of real.
I agree with that.
I think he might be Errol Flynn. I think that's. Anyways, so sort of a fun story, I guess, is that they took this Defender vehicle out and thinking that the BMW guys would really dig it, and no, not so much, and that's sort of what brings us to where we are now. Yes, that's sort of where. So talk to me a little bit about where did you sort of first happen upon this car, this 50th anniversary prototype? What year was it, and where in the world did you find it?
Sure. So I think it was 2001. I was on assignment there, 2001 timeframe. And as I mentioned, my first assignment was in test engineering. So I spent a lot of time getting to know the scrapyard, which is really the engineering yard, right, where all the test vehicles end up. certainly use for parts. So I was cruising through looking for, whatever it was at the time we needed. And I saw this, absolutely beautiful, Defender 90. And I knew it was a North American spec.
Right.
And it was like a dream car for me, when I was young. I think I was 22 at the time, 23 maybe. And essentially asked about the car, and they were like, and they told the story about Reitzler, and, it was actually made for him, thinking, that they would appreciate, seeing this car for the 50th anniversary upcoming of Land Rover. And so it was actually it's a pre-production car, but it has a production VIN. And so it is not numbered, as you can see, there. It's labeled first off because it's actually pre-0 or pre-number 1. It's the only Epsom green NAS 90 that they made in that year in 97, and it was sent to.
Is that Wolfgang's favorite color? Is that one?
I don't know.
They went with
I think
Chrysler green.
Yeah, I mean, I can only guess that it was either the product marketing team or whoever was in charge that was there. They thought it would be the most sort of special color for this one-off run.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you notice, I think as well, something that's kind of interesting for those of you who can see the screen, it's got these little bumperlets, which not every one of them had. And I feel like that's an homage to the Reitzler mustache. I feel like tiny little grill plates there. Sort of as you could tell the car was built specifically for him. I mean, you could tell. I think it really does. It's sort of, they have the same look on their face actually. In both kinds.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you know what I mean, right? I like it. There's a sternness. Anyways, left it to be said that Wolfgang didn't love the car.
It also still has the BMW not cell phone, but wired phone in it.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Look
at that there, right there. Does this work anymore? Can you make phone calls on that?
In Germany, it might.
Oh, that's worth a test.
Yeah.
Now, you have some recollections or some knowledge of this vehicle, right? And its history a little bit, Michael?
Yes, I do. So when I went to join the factory and start doing guest experiences and taking people around to see their cars being built on production lines and bits and pieces, I worked with a lot of retired engineers. And one of those engineers, a guy, Graham Silvers, who you may remember, he was around in that era. He looked after P38 Range Rover from an everyday point of view, engineering.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, was Reitzler's favorite Range Rover.
Indeed. So he had a very interesting relationship. I spoke to him the other day about this. I called because I said, tell me the story again. So what basically happened is when BMW management came into Solihull and Longbridge, there was all the Rover group there, and they were sort of expecting, I suppose, something similar to their own manufacturing facilities.
Right.
Completely forgetting that there'd been the whole 70s British Leyland era, and of which it stifled investment in the buildings and production lines and everything. And obviously it had classic Range Rover and Series 3 and what became Defender going on production for years.
Yeah.
So they looked at that and were like, wow, this is ancient. And the glass roof at Solihull, it leaked like a sieve and all those kind of things.
Well, then in the Defender line, they were still rolling around on railroad tracks.
Right to the end. And they saw all that and thought, this is archaic, but they saw these going around. It might have been the one pen, there might have been, who knows what it was.
Right.
But they're like, they're cool. Can we have some of them? And they're like, no, they're the NAS vehicles. They're for North America. You can't. And it's sort of like, well, we're the bosses now. We want some. And they started making BMW management.
No, I have a quick personal question, which is like, how much do you feel like the NAS Defender changed, people's perception of the Defender in general? Like, I feel like at least when I was growing up, that was the epitome, the top of the line. That's what everybody wanted in the UK. We couldn't have it often. It's a V8 car. It has alloy wheels. It has some more exciting colors than maybe what you would get in some other markets.
Well,
Chrysler green.
Right, Chrysler green. I like that color. Well, I would tell Mr. Silvers about that. Anyway, so the vehicle's also actually related to another one, the SV90.
Yeah.
So if you go back, the SV90 came about on the back of an idea called the Land Rover Kariba, which was a soft top concept vehicle from the 1980s. Yeah. And
Just for Caribbean market?
yeah, I mean, yeah, sort of it was that kind of vibe. V8, very big, sort of wide steel wheels. Obviously, the main customer at that point in time was still the British military. So it didn't really go down terribly well then, the idea of doing a lifestyle Defender until the 1990s when, things sort of started to change a little bit. And they built a $1.5 million Defender with Brian Adams coming down the production line in the back of it.
Oh, yeah.
Was he playing a song?
No, there's a really cheesy photo of him with some guys who are looking at him really starry-eyed.
Around about the time Prince of Thieves came out, right?
Indefinitely, yeah. But yeah.
He had a TD5 Defender in Canada, which he shouldn't have. I don't know how, like the rich just keep getting richer. It's too bad. Too bad. Brian Adams. He's a national hero, though.
He is
We love him
indeed.
now.
You
We
know,
love him. Yeah.
never say never.
Yeah. Right. Dude, we'll talk after.
So anyway,
Yeah.
back to that. So yeah, you got the vehicles that did related. You got the SV, you've got the the NAS Defenders, and you've got the 50th anniversary, and they're all sort of one and the same. Obviously, apart from the drivetrain on the nice.
Yeah.
The V8, the roll cage.
Yeah.
I mean, that really, for a lot of people, at least for teenage Ike Gus, that's what everybody wanted.
That's you get a poster. A lot of boys had different things in their rooms, but not Ike.
That's true.
Scott's the NAS 90.
That's
there.
true.
Definitely a
Yeah.
vehicle that was missed in Australia as well.
Yeah.
I'm Australian originally, and seeing those available and not being able to get hold of them, was quite frustrating.
Yeah, for sure.
And apparently also appealing to Lauren when she saw it in the scrapyard. So tell us a little bit about the process of, take us from when you saw it in the yard and you fell in love with it to the time it was, here in the United States and you're, loving your dream car. And you still have it. So it was definitely your dream car, right?
Yeah, I do have it, and I'm the first original owner.
First and only,
outside
right?
Of the fleet department at Land Rover. So, yeah, I saw it in the scrapyard, fell in love with it. I had been off-roading back home as part of the early Bronco project at Ford Motor Company, and so really got into the sport and wanted to, sort of have an icon like this. I was young and obviously working, so I inquired with my new colleagues at Land Rover, and they helped me get through this very long process. It was a lot because, as we're trying to sort of get this story together, they were doing the same thing at that time because it was in 2001. And that vehicle had been sitting for a number of years.
Right.
And so to kind of pull that story back together, and, they had to validate that the VIN was officially NAS. They actually had to reverse some of the European changes that had been made to the model and get it ready for importation for me to make it through customs and everything else. So, unfortunately, I lost the winch and a few other things, but
it's interesting that you say the winch specifically, because we noticed in the paperwork here, for those that can see, it does say to remove the winch bumper and the winch and keep for me, which I guess whoever was taking this car apart, I guess that's where that winch is. That guy's got it. Whoever this guy is.
I mean, Tony Monk. Did you know Tony?
I know Tony Monk very well.
There you go. So Tony's got your winch.
Such a great character.
Yeah. There you go.
He only recently retired.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe have a chance of getting that winch back from Tony.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, you described Tony as sort of an artifact of the factory, much in the same way that these production lines were read.
Yeah, he's got that era, like Roger Craythorne and Graham Silvers and Rod Gill and Malcolm, have you met? Yeah, all of those guys, they're of the same ilk. And if there was an opportunity with buying a vehicle or getting a part or do that, yes, that's just the way it was.
Yeah. It was a different time. Certainly.
Yeah, they called it tad, they was like, go and get that piece of junk or piece of, they called it in British tad.
Tad, exactly. Yeah, well, and that, car became what was, the 1997 Diamond Edition or 50th Anniversary Edition car. Now, they did change it from Chrysler Green to what is like
Willow Green.
Willow Green, yeah. It's like a gray-green color, really nice color, but they kept the checker plating. But, you notice that they got rid of the Chrysler mustache plates. So, that is yet another unique thing to the pre-production vehicle is the little mustache plate.
This car was like built to be sort of the pinnacle of North American spec Defenders at the time. You know, this was the last edition, the final edition of North American spec Defenders. It was the station wagon. It had the safety devices, roll cage. It had the diamond plate. It was frequently called the Diamond Edition because of that plating, but it was sort of the top spec that you could get. And I can remember going to the dealership and seeing that. And that's the one that everybody wanted.
It has air conditioning stock from the factory.
Air conditioning, automatic transmission.
The factory's already put checker plating over all the places that get really bad galvanic corrosion from the fasteners. So that's nice.
It's the most American British car.
It is the most American British car. Yeah, that's exactly
V8,
right. V8 air conditioning. Absolutely. Yeah, it's got air. It came with a 12 foot by 12 foot American flag. It had everything you needed. Everything you needed.
So Lauren, talk to us a little bit about your experience owning this vehicle. So you've got the car. How
did that process go to just get the car? What happened? Like, so this is a North American spec vehicle, so you didn't need a 25-year rule exemption or any of that. You brought this in as if it was a brand new car in 1997. So what was that process like?
Yeah, once it was confirmed and validated, essentially, you know, we did an employee vehicle sale.
Okay.
Because I was an employee of the company.
Yeah.
So I got it for, you know, sort of what they like to joke as a farm tractor price back then, a fair price.
Yeah.
And so I definitely benefited from that. And then they shipped it over with a fleet of new vehicles for me, and it landed in Baltimore at the port, and we had it shipped to Connecticut from there, which is where I mentioned I'm from. And, you know, my dad babysat it until I got home from my assignment.
And what kind of condition was the car in when you got to it finally? It's with you in Connecticut, and is it pristine? Does it look like a brand new 97 car? Yeah.
Yeah, it was nearly brand new at the time, but now, obviously 20 something years later, you know, you do see the bubbling and some of the corrosion coming through the paint. And we've had to, you know, replace, you know, bolts and do kits and things to just try to keep it, you know.
I noticed in the notes with the history of the vehicle that they did quite a bit of preparation for you to obtain it. You know, they replaced the transfer case, which it said was stored in the back of the vehicle, the exhaust, you know, a number of things.
That's often where you find a Land Rover's transfer case. It's stored in the back of it. You know, we'll get to it. It's gonna, you know, it's on my list.
So they really did quite a bit of maintenance.
I mean, this is Tony Monk. It's just he and I and he and most of the engineers had such a tight relationship. You know, I felt like they just welcomed me and included me in their sort of club. And I think he did it because I earned their trust, and they wanted to see this vehicle in the hands of someone who they knew would take care of it.
Right. That's fantastic. You obviously have it's here. For those of you who didn't realize it, it's here up on top of the Mount 130 over there. And yeah, you should definitely go check it out because it is just a little bit different than a NAS car. If any of you have one or have seen one, it's a little different. There's some little specialty bits on it, and it's really neat.
Like the dent in the hood.
The dent in the hood is good. Yeah.
Is there a story behind that dent?
I have no idea how that happened, and you can't imagine the amount of anger that I had when I saw it.
Oh.
And there's no way to PDR it, or
it's real hard. Yeah, aluminum hood. Yeah, that's
so.
Do you know what's on the door?
What's that?
Nothing.
Never mind. I mean, the last I checked, those little mustache plates were still there. I don't know what could have happened to them. Yeah, it's a very real collectible. Yeah.
So for those of you that haven't seen, there's a really nice display up here on the hill to our left, or my left, your right. And they've kind of got a progression of vehicles. They've got the older 90 and 110, and then on the opposite side, they have a newer special edition. It's a 90 as well.
It's a 90,
and then a 130,
and then the Rebel Rally 130.
Rebel Rally
30.
That's true.
Rebel Rally. Make sure you come to that panel this afternoon with the Rebel Rally team, Daphne Green, and a number of folks from the SCAR, the Texas Club here. It's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it. For sure. All right. So on the sort of importation and stuff, that all came in. It was a new vehicle, and And then you've set about sort of curating it for the last, like you said, 20 some odd years. So what's the plan with the car going forward? Do you have it willed to a family member? Is it going to get donated to the Dunsbold collection? What's your long-term plan for the car? You and Mike going to take it out and just rip it around the off-road course?
We'll take it back classically.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's an offer. Yeah.
There's an offer.
What are we looking at, Mike? How much? Let's say let's start at 300,000. What do you think?
Unfortunately, we can't swap it for an island.
Oh, okay. All
Can't
right.
get
Okay.
any-
Yeah, we would like an island one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be that's one I want. But
Yeah, it's been in and out of storage for the last 20 years. I drove it a lot, so it does have some miles on it now. Still low mile, considered to be a low mile vehicle. I'm actually fortunate to have my son here, my 9-year-old Wesley, in the audience.
Wes actually drove the Defender here, which a lot of people don't know. But it's fine. Anything's legal.
He
in
really
Texas.
wants to drive today, so if
Yeah.
anyone is available to let him drive, that would be amazing. He actually made his own driver's license for
You
this
can
event.
definitely drive my rental
Fantastic.
car.
Yeah, you can drive the rental car, no problem. I mean, no car more capable than one you rented.
But to your question on what's next, my husband is a mechanic and has a small business service shop.
That's
where
convenient when you own a Defender.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, good to have that.
And so I think it just runs in the family. We're into cars and motorcycles and things that go
Nice.
and mechanical things. And so I think Wesley's already showing signs of, and actually all 3 of our children are showing signs of mechanical abilities. So I think I'd like to hang on to it long enough to see if our children will embrace and take care of it. But certainly for now, we may be relocating soon to warmer climates. If that happens, I will start driving it again.
Fantastic. Well, you're welcome in California anytime. Plenty of desert, plenty of hot, dry weather. So great place to keep a Land Rover or Ike in Oregon.
I understand that there's treatments available for people who are showing signs of mechanical aptitude.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. You want to get out of that right away. Like get a blind witness or something for that. That's no way to live. But I thought maybe because we have a minute or two here before we wrap up, I think. I'm saying that. I have no idea. I'm looking at my watch. Well, geez. No, we're fine. I'm just kidding. If there's anyone that has questions, this is a live thing. Why not? Normally someone has to break into Ike's home to ask a question during the podcast. So, which has happened a number of times. But does anybody have any questions for the panel? Jeff Aronson from Rover's Magazine. Yes.
Mike, a question for you and Lauren. Describe what it was like to actually walk through a process of creating the NAS. What were the imperatives from the U.S. market, U.S. subsidiary to actually have a Defender here when Charlie Hughes was leading that up? What was it that pushed you to bring the Defender? And then what did you have to make it compliant for U.S. sales and buy?
I'll just summarize for those who can't hear Jeff because he doesn't have a mic. The question was, what did you guys have to do to the NAS Defender? And what was that journey in developing and shepherding that vehicle to the U.S. market?
Very
Very important. Yeah.
Everybody knows.
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Well, I suppose from what I hear from people who worked on the vehicle back in the day, obviously I was just a kid in Australia, in those days when it came about, that you had obviously Range Rover of North America in the 1980s, and then obviously there was as Discovery or D1 came, Discovery 1L came out, it sort of created that sort of the way that the vehicles are positioned to now with sort of nameplates or brand, and people realised they needed to introduce Defender, and then that brought the opportunity of reintroducing the original Land Rover to the US. Obviously, from an engineering point of view, they needed to bring a vehicle which had into today's then's little challenges.
Yeah, the 90s were not a great time to bring a car into the
No,
United States.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, they had special lighting, right? Rollover protection.
all of that, and The person you really need to answer is the new director of Classic, a guy called Paul Barrett. Because
Oh, yeah.
he was a young engineer at the time, and he came over here and did a lot of the Death Valley testing and all of that thing, and he'll know it all back to front, inside out. So, yeah, I think I should put you guys in touch.
Or what about further research necessary?
Yeah. What about from an engineering
Yeah.
standpoint? I mean, what had to kind of change about that car? Obviously, the Defender is essentially a Series 3 that had been developed in the 1960s. What had happened to bring that to a North American market?
Yeah, I wasn't around for the engineering aspect, but what I heard in the engineering department was all around safety and meeting the thresholds that were required for America, whether airbags or other safety features that just they were constantly challenged with because the volume of the Defenders were going into military uses. And so they didn't want to change, they had to find a happy medium between being core and authentic to the military and the actual utility of the vehicle, and then trying to meet some of these other factors for more of a, commercial.
A commercial car. Yeah. I think AN General went through a very similar thing in trying to federalize the Humvee. It was not an easy task, I guess, but
There's sticklers over there at the National Highway Transportation
they
Safety.
sure are. They sure are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any other questions? Well, if you'd like to have a recap of this, or just generally speaking, find out all kinds of interesting bits of information every Monday on the Underpowered Hour, please feel free to scan the old QR code, tune on into the show. We have a YouTube channel as well, all kinds of content up there. Our good friend Michael Bishop has been on there many times. And Lord, hopefully we'll have you on in the future. And yeah,
I'd like to thank everybody for coming today and remind everybody to observe Veterans Day.
absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a big deal.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Wonderful. Our analyst here. Because you enjoyed this, which is one of the many, many stories we've done. And again, welcome. First saw top the hill over there. We're enjoy.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
All right. Well, what a fascinating conversation. It's neat. Those kind of like weird cars, like it's a one of one sort of thing. It was it's not a unique vehicle, and then it was a NAS Defender, but all of the little, pieces and bits and things that went into sort of the build for it and how it sort of ultimately ended up with Lauren is pretty interesting. Actually, I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, the little bit of history on how it was prepared and brought to the U.S. and how it was kind of a mix of U.S. and German market features make it a unique little, footnote in North American Defender history. Kind of fascinating.
Because they only made 300 of those 97 cars, right? Is that right? The Diamond Edition one there is only like 300.
300 plus the ones that were part of this allocation to BMW executives.
Yeah. That's pretty funny. Yeah, that's though those didn't come back. Who knows? In Germany somewhere.
None of those were apparently returned to Land Rover.
They're floating around there somewhere. So if you're for our German listeners, maybe you can find one of those BMW executive Defender 90s. It'd be pretty cool.
Mhm.
That's a nice spec. I like the Diamond Edition car. It's kind of got all the stuff that people normally do to their NAS 90s. It's put the checker plate on in all the areas that get galvanic corrosion, so it's good.
Some might say it's the prototype for the diamond plate on the new Defender.
Good point. You're
Because that was kind of maybe the first factory edition that had diamond plating on the tops of the fenders.
You're right.
Certainly it was used on other cars at other times, but in terms of an official Land Rover edition, that might be the first. If we have a listener that knows otherwise, I'd like to hear from
let
you.
us know. Yeah, because that's a good point. I mean, there's nothing more iconic than checker plating on the wings of a Defender. So if that may have been the inception point for it. That's a big deal. Anyways, it was great hanging out with Lauren, and it was super fun hanging out with Mike Bishop, with, of course, Nick Dimbleby, everybody who's out there, Bob Steele, all of our friends from Jaguar, Land Rover, Jeffrey Ahuden, and the gang. Joe E, Joe S, all the Joes were there. It was really, really a fun time. I had a great time with both Fitz and the Tantrums. Check out the old YouTube video for this one, because a lot of the stuff that we talk about is visual. We had a little presentation going there, and you can see some pictures of the car itself in the YouTube version of this show. So if you haven't headed over to the old Underpowered Hour YouTube, please do check it out. Like and subscribe and turn on the little bell to get notified when we upload new things. Not just the show, we also have YouTube-specific content. We've got some great stuff up there, I'm told, apparently.
Truly.
Maybe.
No, it's an excellent source of everything Land Rover. So check it out immediately. Make sure it's a priority in your life.
Yep.
We hope to see you there soon.
Until next time, keep it between the ditches, and we'll talk to you next week.
Adios, Stephen.
The Underpowered Hour is produced by Liza Barris, Ike Goss, and me, Steve Barris. Pavel Svardov composed and performed our theme music. Consider supporting the show on Patreon, and if you already do, thank you. Your support makes the show possible. For even more, check out our Instagram or Facebook.